The magic of childbirth, boys and girls. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Merry Christmas, Motorhead.
Motorhead, for me, are the most fantastic adrenaline rush in the world. And you have to have it. At least once a year, if not more. And without it, life just isn't the same.
If you like to gamble, I'll tell you how you man. You win some, lose some, and do the same to me.
Motorhead were the loudest band in rock and roll. You know, some of us, they still are.
The pleasure is to blame. Make no difference what you say.
Motorhead, they just had real balls.
I don't shade green. The only gun I need is the ace of spades. The ace of spades.
Lemmy came in with his catchphrase about, is it loud enough for you? The obvious answer was always no. Right, turn it up.
I think it's all about the power of the music. It's all about really just sort of vibrating people.
Lemmy's bass sounded like a rusty chain. I mean, Phil was like an avalanche and Eddie was just a torrential wave of sheet metal noise. I mean, it was just glorious.
The ace of spades. The ace of spades.
There's no question about it. Motorhead were unique.
You know, Motorhead were the original sort of tooth-rattling, bone-shaking rock band.
If Motorhead moved in next door to you, your lawn would die.
You're hearing basic, brutal, raw rock and roll, loud, in your face, the way it's meant to be.
And don't forget the Joker.
Motorhead's very first track was the song Motorhead, which of course was the Hawkwind number. And when Lemmy was booted out of Hawkwind by Dave Brock and company, he decided, I'm going to put together a band called Bastard.
After they got over not calling the new band Bastard, because they wouldn't get on top of the pops with that name, they called it Motorhead after a speed freak.
Let's face it, Lemmy liked speed, so much so I think there's the old apocryphal rock and roll story that his doctor told him that if he stopped taking it, he'd die because his system wouldn't been able to take the shock.
It was declaration of intent. Lemmy sticking his flag up high, you know, from the word go. And it was perfect for them. And it was only right, you know, when they signed to a label that that would be their first single after White Line Fever, which was also a declaration of intent and of another sort.
Lemmy brought a lot to Hawkwind in terms of the earthy bass and a slightly more aggressive style. And when Lemmy was kicked out of Hawkwind because of drug problems in America, inevitably what Lemmy took into starting Motorhead had elements of what he'd learnt with Hawkwind. Not a huge amount, but Hawkwind weren't just a psychedelic band, they had a lot of rock and roll about them as well.
I think Lemmy probably bought the Anarchy that he'd bought. I mean, Anarchy probably existed in Hawkwind, given they were such a free-form sort of outfit. You know, they're sort of free-thinking, sort of new ideas, you know, that kind of whole anarchic way of expressing yourself. These kind of hippie collectives sort of had, like Hawkwind and Gong. You know, it was like, well, let's do something new. And I think Lemmy took that to the extreme, so much so, I think, that obviously that's why Hawkwind chose to sack him.
As he used to say, they used to like sitting in the vegetarian restaurant waving at him while he was sort of walking around grinding his teeth out off his nut on speed.
Lemmy, I mean, you've been playing with a decent band, Hawkwind. I mean, Hawkwind was quite decent. Why did you do Motorhead in the first place?
Hawkwind wasn't decent. Hawkwind was just as heavy as Motorhead, but we didn't have the big PAs in those days, you see. We had to build up, you know, to this point here.
Psychedelic.
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 Motorhead's version of Motorhead was a little more frenetic than the Hawkwind version, which, given the rather laid-back nature of Hawkwind, it was kind of a bit more of a sort of a plodder. Whereas when Motorhead finally laid it down, it was a bit more white noise.
Now, it's not that different from the way Hawkwind did it. Slightly less psychedelic, slightly heavier and slightly dirtier, but not that far removed.
To this day, you can't go to a Motorhead show and not have them play Motorhead. You know, this is what you want from a Motorhead show. When you buy a ticket to see Motorhead, you must see them play Motorhead. It's the law. The first Motorhead album is an absolute classic. I remember Nick Kent in the NME reviewed it and called them the worst band in the world, which Lemmy has never forgiven him for, but in actual fact made you incredibly curious. I mean, if this is the worst band in the world, how cool must that be?
So it did them a little bit of a favour. Had they been a little too tight, a little too professional, I don't think they'd have picked up the audience that they did, which is a combination of fed-up hippies and fed-up Hawkwind fans and punks, because punks picked up on the energy and the vibe and the dirtiness and the aggression.
And punk may have stolen all the headlines because that was like Image, and Motorhead looked like a bunch of greasers, so they weren't anything new. But Motorhead were creating at the time the most sort of frightening and shocking new noise that there was to be heard.
If you'd never seen them, you'd definitely think it was a punk album. If you had seen them, you definitely would know this was not a punk album. I mean, Lemmy looked like the biker from hell. Fast Eddie, you know, even longer hair than Lemmy. Called Fast Eddie, didn't play very fast, just chords. And at the back, you know, you've got the drummer from the Muppets, you know, so incredibly interesting group, but hadn't a couple of great tracks, but as an album, clearly they'd made it in, probably spent all of 20 minutes on it, making it, and then straight out the door.
You know, there were a lot of awful punk bands, there was a lot of very pretentious fringe of punk bands, and Motorhead were the real thing. They weren't trendy, but they were not embraced by the weeklies. I was putting them in zigzag regularly as a kind of almost that famous finger of the rest of the music business. Because I did believe in them, I just thought there's nothing more exciting than this.
The audience Motorhead had in those days was incredible. I mean, of course, you got, you know, a lot of biker kind of dudes, a lot of acid heads, a lot of Hawkwind leftovers, a lot of punk kids that were looking for, that were Damned fans or Pistols fans, really enjoyed that kind of theatre of the absurd, which Motorhead also embodied.
I saw them one time, Lemmy struck a pose on a flight case, and the flight case went scooting, like the place was only like half full, and he went scooting across the middle of the dance floor, because it was a very small venue, on one leg, still trying to play bass. I mean, things would happen like this. They were just intent on putting, you know, the cat among the pigeons with the punks.
There was this just kind of a lull in the music scene just before punk came up, and it went through this incredible Bob Harris kind of sleepy kind of lull, where the best you had was Rory Gallagher and perhaps Lynyrd Skynyrd, but you had nobody who was going to blow your head off, which I loved with the Who and Cream and all that kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, you know, after sort of 6 or 7 years of this lull, I go to the Art Centre to see Motorhead, and they blow me head off, and you have 90 minutes of absolutely sheer kind of pulse racing sort of adrenaline rush, which you haven't had for years. You think, shit, this is what I was missing. Yes, I got it back at last, you know, and of course immediately that is it. You've grabbed hold of it and you don't want to let go.
Overkill isn't as good as it gets from Motorhead, but my God, it was a step in the right direction.
Overkill was very much the first Motorhead album that I think the rest of the world first paid attention to. You've got this amazing title track, of course, Overkill, which talk about it does what it says on the tin. It really was and is the most tremendous track.
I mean, just listen to the speed of Phil Taylor's drumming on Overkill itself.
Overkill! Overkill! Overkill!
You know, I mean, that's frightening. I don't believe that any metal drummer came up with anything quite as bombastic until Dave Lombardo in Slayer. But before that, I mean, we're talking a long way before that. Listen to Filthy Taylor's drums on Overkill. That's fast stuff.
No messing around guitar solos, no messing around keeping a beat with the drums. Just bing bang bish bash bosh wallop wallop wallop, and as fast as you can go, and no stopping till the end.
Overkill! Overkill! Overkill!
I spoke to Eddie Clark about it, funnily enough, and Phil Taylor wanted an excuse to have an extra kick drum or bass drum. He wanted two, like Ginger Baker, I guess, but he needed a reason to have two. So he bought another one and thought, well, it can be a spare for the tour, and the pedal can be the spare for the tour anyway, so I've not lost anything. So he integrated it into his kit. And Lemmy and Phil came into the rehearsals one morning when they were sort of getting the songs together for Overkill, and they heard this bada 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 bada, and they thought, fuck hell, what's going on? And went in, and Phil was playing this. They said, don't stop, let's get the tape recorder and tape this a bit quick, you know, so they taped it. And of course, as the song develops, you know, Lemmy sort of starts off his bit on about the 12th fret, and sort of sounds like a B-52 bomber sort of coming into land as it flows on down. And I said to Eddie about it, and he said, well, yeah, he said, Phil was absolutely going crackers on the kit, and Lemmy was going crackers on the bass. And he said, I thought, well, if I go crackers as well, it's going to be a bit silly. And if you kind of listen to Eddie's chords on there, they're pretty kind of laid back, and they're sort of ding, 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 ding. They're very... He chose them extremely well.
We used to do regular television shows. We used to hire you at television studio, and we used to do regular bronze get-togethers, so we would take 4 or 5 artists and effectively do a Top of the Pops. Very, very economical way of making video. And Keith McMillan had this idea of doing Motorhead, and I said, well, there's no way we're going to record Motorhead live. He said, well, fine, we'll make up a tape and they can mime to it. And we actually got them to do it. And what was interesting was halfway through, and it's 20 minutes long, so you can only run it so many times, and halfway through, Phil said, I can't do this. I cannot play 20 minutes non-stop to a tape. And I said, I don't care what you do, even if you drop dead, just keep going, because all the cameras will pick up whatever else is going. And we made a really good video.
The title track itself is absolutely monstrous. It's a tremendous tour de force of rock and roll. And I use the term rock and roll as opposed to metal or hard rock because that's the way Lemmy has always defined his band. He's always said, we're not metal, we're not punk, we're not hard rock, we're rock and roll. And that's exactly what you hear on the Overkill album.
I think Motorhead fans and Lemmy himself would concede that the 3 albums that led up to No Sleep Till Hammersmith were really the creative peak of the first Motorhead. Overkill was obviously the start of that. It was the first album they recorded with Jimmy Miller, who was very well known for his work with the Rolling Stones. Obviously it was a big thrill for Lemmy to work with such an esteemed and legendary producer, and I think Jimmy Miller really pulled himself up by his bootstraps, came up with some really good sounds, and I think it was what he gave Motorhead in terms of sound that Lemmy was able to use later on in the band's career.
Obviously the main problem with Motorhead is capturing that beast and getting it onto record and representing that enormous power that they had. And the first album, it was great, but it got through on its energy more than the quality of the sound. Overkill managed to catch it a bit more.
1,000 nights I spent alone, solitaire to the bone. But I don't mind, I'm my own best friend from the beginning to the end.
Jimmy Miller took them, with his Stones experience, into a whole new area. Although that's what we know as Motorhead, and they probably always sounded like that, but it was a, if you like, it was a cleaner, dirty band than they had been before. They recorded in our studio downstairs, so I was in and out of the studio while they were recording with Jimmy Miller. And Lemmy came up to me and said, "This guy's absolutely fantastic." They were completely knocked out with Jimmy Miller.
Overkill's where it all really started to take off. People started to realise that this is when the metal hordes got into them, and Motorhead started to get their own little army. And by now we knew that snaggletooth visage was going to be Motorhead's kind of mascot, and that was played on, and it was all falling into place for Bomber.
Bomber was not really the album that Overkill was, if we look at it coldly and dispassionately. It had some great tracks, Bomber itself, Stone Dead Forever, All the Aces. They're classic tracks. The highs were high, but the lows were lower, not as consistent as its predecessor.
The way you can fly 5 miles off the ground, because we shoot to kill, and you know we always will. It's a bomber, it's a bomber.
In terms of musicality, if anything, Bomber was a slightly disappointing album as compared to Overkill. Not that it was a bad record by any stretch of the imagination, it was very strong. However, Overkill was so good, it overshadowed Bomber to some extent.
Of course, the thing you've got to remember with Motorhead in those days, that the albums are very much the platform upon which they built the live show. The albums were done extremely fast, no messing about, none of this, we're going to spend 3 months in the country writing some songs and then 3 months rehearsing them and then another 6 months working with a top producer and seeing what good textures we can come up with. It was, what are you doing at 9 o'clock on a Friday night? Let's get in there and we'll be finished by Monday morning. We won't sleep, but we won't mess around either.
The other two albums had really failed to capture the live power, and Bomber failed even more to capture the live power. As ever, they were getting through entirely on the energy, the attitude and the quality of the songs. And if the quality of the songs isn't all there, which on Bomber, to be honest, they weren't, you can always tell by how many get played live after about one tour, and not many from Bomber survived. Probably the title track was the only one.
Scream 1,000 miles, hear the black death rising moan.
What was different with Bomber as compared to Overkill was the stage set. They brought in the Bomber for the title track, which people immediately picked up on and think, wow, what a great trick. This is fantastic. A bit of stage presence, amazing.
Lemmy has a fascination with World War II aircraft, World War II insignia. When I used to visit him at his house, the whole house would be covered in these models that he'd spend hours and hours and hours building and painting. So Bomber came from that, and live, Bomber would be the last number of the night, and the lighting rig was fashioned like the wings of a Spitfire. I think in Lemmy's mind it was a Messerschmitt.
And it was quite something to see, you know, with the band underneath and the wings going and the nose going down and all that, you know, and it weighs a fair old bit, you know, and they must have a lot of faith in that thing hanging over their heads when they're just sort of playing away and not taking any notice of what's going on.
It was great until Lemmy stuck his leg on it one night and the thing went back up again, took Lemmy with it, and he was stuck. I mean, that's another good example of things going wrong.
It sounds so crude, and it was, but in those days it looked as if the plane was coming in to crash land, and in the middle of it was Lemmy just absolutely singing his heart out, Bomber! And it was just the most tremendous end to the most tremendous night.
Because you know we do it right, and make sure every night. It's a bomber, it's a bomber, it's a bomber.
Despite the fact that musically, Overkill is probably slightly the better album, Bomber was slightly the more commercially successful record. Again, simply because of the momentum of the time and the market forces and so forth. But there's no question, Bomber is still a very good album. However, I don't think personally it's good as what came before, Overkill, or what was to come afterwards, Ace of Spades.
Ace of Spades is in.
Commercially, Ace of Spades was the one. It took them over the top and finally made them into a band that everybody knew.
Ace of Spades has got to be in the top 10 greatest rock albums ever list, whoever compiles it ever. Not just because it was a great album, but because it was such an influential album. And of course the icing on the cake was the title track, Ace of Spades. Is it punk? Is it metal? It's Motorhead, that's what it is, and it's Motorhead at their absolute zenith.
But that's the way I like it, baby. I don't want to live forever. And don't forget the Joker.
Well, I absolutely love Eddie's playing on Ace of Spades. I think he's a great guitarist, and his licks in Ace of Spades that's what Motorhead is about to me. And there's a wonderful combination of the way Lemmy sings Ace of Spades and Eddie puts those licks in. It's the epitome. To me, that's their best track.
Ace of Spades was one of those records that some bands have, and they have a moment, and that's their moment.
It's kind of like the Who's My Generation. You know, Hope I Die Before I Get Old. It was I Don't Want to Live Forever. And although the lyrics, you know, Lemmy says, well, don't read anything into them. They're just about playing cards, you know, and about the dead man's hand and all that type of thing. It's the I Don't Want to Live Forever, which, I mean, the words are don't forget the Joker, but over the last few years, Lemmy has said, but it looks like I'm going to, instead of don't forget the Joker, because he just goes on and on and on, bless him.
I did try and take Lemmy to task about the lyrics once, and I said, isn't that a bit like when Pete Townsend wrote the line, hope I die before I get old? And he said, absolutely not. He said, because Townsend had actually screwed up, because hope I die before I get old means you're going to die soon. Whereas Lemmy saying, I don't want to live forever, actually meant, you know, he could die the day before forever. In other words, he could live to be thousands of years old, drink millions of bottles of bourbon, take zillions of drugs, and make love to billions of gorgeous, scantily clad, tattooed ladies. So I Don't Want to Live Forever was his way, as he explained it to me, of actually saying, I want it all, and I want it for as long as I can get it.
Pushing up the ante, I know you got to see me. Freedom and weep, the dead man's hand again.
They became the rock band that the mainstream liked. Everybody loved Motorhead, they were in the charts, and everyone said, great, what a fine bunch of British eccentrics. And the way they were eccentric, they were seen as characters. They were as threatening as the Carry On movie characters. They didn't seem threatening, even though they looked threatening. And let's face it, you look at the cover of Ace of Spades, these three guys with ponchos looking like they stepped out of spaghetti western, except it looks like a sandpit in your local school in New Malden, rather than out there in the desert. Somehow all that came together and made Motorhead a band that the mainstream felt weren't really threatening.
They had a thing, Motorhead, that they only ever had producers for 2 albums. I think they wore them out. And dear old Jimmy Miller bowed out Vic Mail came in, he'd been working with bands like Dr. Feelgood, who were sort of the predecessors of punk, and he knew how to get a good sound down. It was a little bit cleaner, less in your face perhaps, but still with the guts. And he took them away to his studio in Rickmansworth. He got a very good album out of them, and I think certainly as far as Lemmy's songwriting goes, it's never been better than that.
I think they knew they were onto a massive album when they did that, and you can just hear it in the playing, and Vic Mail managed to capture all that.
There isn't a bad song on there. You know, here is a band who at the time were creating the most abrasive and extreme rock and roll stroke heavy metal that there was. Okay, and yet they never lost sight of a good song. Every song on that record is a bloody good, catchy song.
The only thing you see, you know it's gonna be the ace of spades, the ace of spades.
Lemmy's Motorhead, and Motorhead is Lemmy. He's said it himself many occasions, and he's absolutely right.
How long have I been on the road?
Yeah.
19 years.
19 years?
Yeah. Give or take a year.
I mean, isn't it boring after a while?
No.
Yes, without Lemmy there could be no Motorhead, and it's probably true that without Motorhead Lemmy might not be around either.
I mean, why do you do such a heavy group? Can't you play it a little softer?
Yeah, could do. Could do, but I'm not going to.
Lemmy defines Motorhead, always has done, always will do.
We like it. We don't like little softies.
But don't you think there is a point after which there is no comeback, no return? It's a one-way to hell, maybe.
Right.
So what you gonna do?
Go to hell. See you there.
Lemmy has always had the focus, the vision, the forward thinking. He's always been the leader of the band. Even back in the early days, he put the band together. It was his idea. He knew what he wanted.
Does it all come from the PA or from the energy of the musicians?
Both.
The energy of the musicians.
Through the PA.
Where did you find Phil?
I found him. I found him in the corner of my room, lying down, actually. Didn't I, Phil?
Why did they call you the animal, Phil?
Well, they didn't. It was
because he likes to scroll stations.
A young lady I used to know called me Filthy Animal.
Genius. I think Lemmy is one of the all-time greats. I have no compunction about saying that. And every photo shoot we ever did with them was totally over the top, and always worked, and we had great fun doing it. Well, at that time, I would try any idea. We just came up with ideas out of the blue, and let's try that, And we got a Roman candle, and we taped it to the back of the guitar, and lit it. Anyway, we shot it, lit the candle, smoke and flames coming out everywhere, and he did all these poses, and when it was over, he said, did you ever do that before then? I said, no. He said, if that blew up, it would blow my bloody leg off.
The musicality with Lemmy is often overlooked. People talk about the personality of Lemmy. People talk about his TV appearances and the Kit Kat ad, for instance, and his film appearances. People talk about the warts and the moustache and so forth. People rarely talk about Lemmy the musician. I don't believe you can have as long a career as Lemmy with as much success and respect as Lemmy without having a lot of musical talent.
The interesting thing about Motorhead is you stick your fingers in your ears when they're playing, and you listen to what Lemmy's playing, and there's some extraordinary stuff going on there, all sorts of chords and harmonics that are flying around. So it isn't just to kind of crank it up and play a lot of noise. There's a bit of a method behind the whole thing.
There's a level of intensity required to play live the sort of music that Motorhead play. If Lemmy wasn't a good bass player, he wouldn't be able to do that.
I think if you're in a three-piece band, you have to do more than just plonk the root notes, and nobody would ever say that Lemmy only plonks. He attacks it, doesn't he? And I think he uses a Rickenbacker bass, which has got a lot more highs than, say, something like a Precision. So, in a way, the guitarist has to lay down the foundation, and Lemmy sort of speeds along over the top. It's a reversal of roles to some bands. It's almost like a lead bass, but nobody can say it's not right for the sound.
You talk too loud. You don't fit in with the crowd. I can't believe you exist. I crossed you right on my list. Too much, too soon. You ain't out of tune. No class. No class.
Well, No Sleep Till Hammersmith kind of surprised everybody, because on hindsight it is now racked up side by side with Live at Leeds, which absolutely thrills Lemmy to death, because Live at Leeds is one of his favourite albums as much as it's one of my favourite albums. And I think it was just the time was right.
To record a live album when you're in your moment, as Motorhead were with Ace of Spades, then it stands to reason that what you're going to get with the live album, No Sleep Till Hammersmith, hopefully is going to be something of the same level. And this is Motorhead at their peak, the peak of their creativity, you know, the peak of their playing, the peak of their performance, the peak of their success. So they record a live album, and it's one of the greatest live albums of all time.
What made No Sleep work was the fact that it was so exciting. It captured the energy and the imagination, and it captured the aggression, the personality, the character of Motorhead and the audience on those nights.
I don't think it's a fantastic live album in the sense it's any better than any other live album, but it obviously represented what the public saw in Motorhead. And it went to #1. We only ever had one #1 album in the whole of Bronze Records' career, and that was it, so it says something.
No Sleep Till Hammersmith is probably their best album in terms of capturing the essence of Motorhead and presenting their sound at full throttle on a record. I mean, it's Ace of Spades is great, but this was Motorhead live. That's where they're in their element.
I think the success of No Sleep Till Hammersmith really proves that Motorhead are a quintessential stage band, and that's what people perceive them as. Certainly these days you'll still get sell-out Motorhead tours, but the albums don't make the numbers that perhaps they used to.
The great rock bands, the great rock and roll bands, always come alive on stage. That's where they're in their element. Facing a crowd, aggression, energy backwards and forwards, that's where they really live. And while Motorhead, I'm sure, accepted that they had to go into a studio to record, it was on stage where they really came into their own, where they were louder than anybody else, more aggressive than anybody else, and where the crowd went absolutely mental and crazy. That's when he learnt the Motorhead experience, not from listening to their albums. Their albums were an introduction, but if you really wanted to learn the lesson, you went and saw Motorhead live.
I think really if you had a silhouette from Lemmy from all the years of Motorhead, it's pretty much the same. The right foot is usually on one of the legs of the mic stand. You know, the microphone is cocked because he likes to get his voice out and up into it, and the playing stance and everything. It's just Lemmy. Nobody can ever sort of mimic him.
The thing that had made Motorhead so interesting up until that point was that they appeared to be very instinctual. They didn't appear to spend too long thinking about things, too long pontificating about them. It was very visceral, very from the gut. If it felt right, it is right, let's do it. Conversely, Iron Fist was made in a dreadful hurry. Suddenly, the need is there to make a follow-up, another hit. And although they tried very, very hard not to fall into that trap, inevitably It's exactly what happened, and I don't think any of the 3 original members that made the album will tell you anything particularly good about the experience.
They started doing it in Rickmansworth Jackson Studios again. I went out there a couple of times and it just wasn't... Lemmy was in the pub, basically. There were 2 working titles for the songs, and one was Lemmy Goes to the Pub, and another song was called Lemmy Comes Back from the Pub, and it sounded like that's where I saw him, in the pub, when I got off the train. It wasn't working out with Vic Mail.
The problem with Iron Fist isn't necessarily the songs, the problem is the production. They decided, well, let's produce ourselves. Fast Eddie Clarke wants to be a producer, he's worked with 1 or 2 bands, well, let him produce it. Didn't work.
Motorhead had been on the road, they'd had 2 very successful albums, they'd been promoting them, they'd been touring the States for months, and again, they were writing songs on the spot in the studio, and they weren't that. Heart of Stone is a brilliant song. I love that one. And the title song is pretty good, Iron Fist. But there are a few duffers. It was back to a couple of classics and a bit of filler.
Yes, it's not creatively as good as Ace of Spades. The title track, I think, is a great song. But by that point, the age-old personnel problems had started creeping. It was the last album that Fast Eddie was going to record with the band. Anyone who's ever met Lemmy will tell you he's a lovely bloke, but he's a cantankerous old git as well, and he'll probably agree with that himself. You know, not easy people to get on with, a lot of drugs going on. You know, they're never going to deny that. So that affects everything from, you know, inter-band relationships to the quality of material.
I think what summed it up is they were going to do a great introduction to their stage set. What they were going to have was a screen that came down in front of the stage showing footage of Motorhead all dressed up, the 3 of them, in medieval garb, carrying swords and so forth, wandering around, looking menacing. And then the 3 of them were going to jump through the screen and start the show. Great idea, never came off and never worked and was never used. Part of the reason was I actually saw the footage that they shot as the intro. It looked like 3 idiots, completely pissed, just wandering around in a forest. It was completely ridiculous. It just did not work. And I think that's the trouble with Iron Fist. Interesting ideas, but they don't actually work. There's no cohesion to the record.
Why Eddie left was the single that Lemmy recorded with Wendy O. Williams of Plasmatics, which was a cover version of the country standard Stand By Your Man, Tammy Wynette song. Eddie really wasn't too keen on this at all, and when Wendy had problems getting into tune, Lemmy was prepared to put up with it, but Eddie wasn't. So off the job he went, out of the band he went. Apparently he'd been inclined to leave every few months anyway at that stage, if Lemmy's to be believed. Just this time he wasn't asked back.
I went round Eddie's flat like after he'd left, and he had big plans to do his own group, because one thing about Iron Fist, he'd made sure he had his own track on there, which I think it was called Step Down, which he sings on, and there was an element that he thought he should be a bit more prominent, so he went off on his own, which, to quote a Motorhead song, was Kiss of Death.
I think really that particular lineup, they struggled sort of through so much crap, you know, as being called the worst band in the world and getting knocked back so many times, and I think the fans were sort of rooting for all 3 of them so much. And when it came to a point when Fast Eddie left, I think a lot of them just kind of sort of like, oh, that's it, that's the end.
Motorhead had over 7 or 8 years more or less created their own template. They weren't like any other band, and so to replace any of the members was always going to be difficult. Phil Taylor, the drummer, was a very keen Thin Lizzy fan, and I think it may well have been he who put Brian Robertson's name up in the frame. Obviously Lemmy was very aware of what Robbo had done. They brought him in. He was technically a better player than Fast Eddie Clarke, but as we found, he really wasn't as compatible perhaps as the guy whose place he took and those who followed him.
The time I spent with him, and the time I spent with him during the album, Filthy Animal, just my best friend. He was just so cool. And Lemmy, you know, people think he's a Mr. Hardman and all this. He's not. He's just big softy. He's useless. He's a big softy, right? And so you had to sort of like pull together on it, and I enjoyed every single second of it, and I honestly wouldn't put any of it behind me with any sort of, ooh, didn't like that. I did. My input was pretty large, actually, because basically Motorhead had been a band that they would go in with a producer and they'd do as the producer told them. So they go in there all together in the same studio and go bam bam bam, and just do basically a live thing, right? I didn't really do that. I took the Lizzy thing into the Motorhead thing. So, and funnily enough, we had our producer, well, my old producer, from Thin Lizzy, was producing it. So it was kind of me and him worked together, right?
I guess what I was trying to do was to find out how far we could push it in which directions, and inevitably I'd already started to realise that there were going to be, you know, some factions pushing backwards and forwards. Robbo, a very strong-minded guy, you know, he had his idea of where it could go, and potentially maybe a little more open-minded musically than everybody else. Lemmy, you know, it's his band, so he was always going to want to exert a certain amount of authority in that respect. I think one of the most extraordinary things I found out was what an amazing drummer Phil is. I mean, that was, you know, I didn't realise that until the point that we started working on things, and Robbo started throwing in much more complex stuff into the mix, and Phil was able to respond to that, you know, very, very easily.
He's like a demolition course, you know. It's like he doesn't play from the wrists, he doesn't play from there, he plays from the shoulder, and he hits the bloody things that he wants to kill somebody.
The most defined difference in that album was that Robbo, as a guitar player, was surprisingly much more ready to listen to what Lemmy was doing and to try and interpret that and to add to it with the guitar, rather than just play this kind of riff over the top. I mean, I'm not a great, I think Ace of Spades is a great track, but quite honestly, most of the stuff that they'd done before was just an accident.
We've done all the backing tracks, me and Tony Platt, who obviously did AC/DC Back in Black, and also the first Thin Lizzy album I ever worked on, right? So we were pretty close. And he walks in, he goes, this is bollocks, I'm going to the pub. Fuck off to the pub, and okay, so you don't see him for a while. You don't see Filthy for a while, because Filthy doesn't want to be there unless something's happening, right? So I just went, oh, well, look, you know, I'm just kind of cheesed off with this. We're trying to write an album here, and there isn't anybody here except me, so I'm a bit pissed off. So what I did was I mic'd the drums up, stuck them through a mixing desk, and then brought them back through the PA on a cassette. So I just sit there and play a load of drums, and then play it back through a PA, and then write the guitar riffs while Lemmy was in the pub. And then he'd come back and go, yeah, that's cool, right. And then he'd go off, and then when we got to the eventual studio, he'd disappear for half an hour and come back with these amazing lyrics. So you just go, what's he talking about? He's off his tits.
Lemmy has never, in my opinion, been given credit for his lyrics, which actually are very meaningful and are not just ordinary puerile lyrics, or what most people write any old word to any old note. Lemmy wrote about things that he believed in.
You know, Lemmy's lyric writing is absolutely fantastic. I mean, there are lines in those songs that are just immortal. I mean, they're fantastic. The Funny Farm, I mean, that's, you know, I really like that jacket, but the sleeves are much too long. Who else but Lemmy could come up with lyrics like that?
And it took me a couple of minutes to figure out what the hell he was talking about. Then I realised he was talking about a straitjacket, and he was talking about where you put people when they're completely mental, which is basically where we should have been, right? And I just cracked up laughing. And so every time Tony Platt said to me, solo, because I did a guitar solo on it, right? I couldn't, but I had to take his vocal off in my headphones because I just kept laughing. Because every time he said that, I just thought it was the funniest thing I'd ever heard.
When Another Perfect Day came out, I reviewed it for Kerrang! Magazine at the time. I didn't like it. In fact, I remember saying I thought this was possibly another nail in Motorhead's coffin, which Lemmy didn't take kindly to, I have to say. And I can understand why. Subsequently, and years later, I have to say I've really come to love that album. I've come to understand and appreciate why it worked. At the time, I thought this was Lemmy and Filthy being Motorhead and Brian Robertson, ex-Thin Lizzy, coming in and just wailing over the top, and there's no cohesion between the two. I was completely off beam because there's absolute cohesion and continuity between the two.
Another Perfect Day is a fantastic album. Robbo's playing, on paper, you wouldn't figure him for someone who could replace Fast Eddie. Much more proficient, much more technically adept player than Eddie, but is he Motorhead? If you listen to a track like Shine, for me, he's totally Motorhead. It's a fantastic song. I never realised Motorhead could go to that place that a track like Shine does. I never realised that they could have a guitarist as good as Robbo and really make it work and still sound like Motorhead, but they did and they do.
I was proud of it. I was proud of it. I enjoyed recording it, and I was proud of it. You know,
everybody was really happy with it. Nobody was more surprised than I was when Lemmy suddenly started saying how he hated this and he didn't like that, and you know, that I apparently had just ruined everything. I don't know. I've not ever been able to have a proper conversation with him, which is a bit of a pity, really. But no, he loved it. He really did like the album when we finished. I think he was actually quite proud of the album after we'd finished. You know, I was very surprised that somebody of his strength of character capitulated so easily to the whinging of a few of the fans.
We didn't. He had this impression that we hated it for whatever reason, but we didn't. I mean, the only kind of daft track was Die You Bastard. Everything else was an absolute diamond.
Another Perfect Day just wasn't Motorhead for me. You know, the producer tried to move it in a different direction. Bad mistake. Robbie was not Eddie as far as being a guitarist is concerned. It just wasn't as good.
Right now, right here, ain't gonna let you disappear. Right now, this time, you got yours and I got mine. Come on.
Whether he was the right guy to join Motorhead, well, I think hindsight proves that no, he wasn't. Another Perfect Day is actually quite a good record, I think, but I think the problem was that obviously when Robbo appeared with Motorhead, he didn't want to be in the band anymore.
He went very much against the grain. He cut his long hair short. He wore pink shorts on stage. He did everything he could to underline the fact that this was Motorhead with Robbo, as opposed to this is just Motorhead as a gang.
Somebody should have got Robbo a bit more under control, that's for sure, because he's the sort of guy that needs, you know, somebody to take him by the scruff of the neck every now and then. But there was a lot more music to be made, a hell of a lot more music to be made. It was kind of a bit cowardly, I guess, to sort of, you know, just dump it all.
I don't know. I think Lemmy wanted to go back to where he was, and you know, and just batter out what he wanted to batter out, which is fair enough. And 10 points in the band, right? I mean, the guy's a legend, and he's, you know, I knew him years before I even joined the band. You know, so it's not. There's no bone of contention there.
When you sign a record deal, you don't look in the small print and see whether it says we can have a greatest hits collection at this point or that point or whenever we feel like it. I don't think Lemmy really had a lot of choice in the fact it was going to happen, but what he said was, well, hang on a minute, you're not nailing the lid on my coffin yet. We've got plenty more to come. We may have taken a duff step. It may not have gone well with Robbo, but we can certainly produce more of the goods.
So what they decided to do was introduce the new lineup while also reminding people about their great moments. So they did 4 new tracks: Locomotive, Snaggletooth, Steal Your Face and Killed by Death, which all went on the Greatest Hits record.
Lemmy basically had to assemble a new band, and he got in Pete Gill, the old Saxon drummer, who literally only lasted, I think, for the period of the new material they recorded for this record. An ex-army bloke called Wurzel, who's a lovely chap, and Phil Campbell, who'd played in a terrible heavy metal band called Persian Risk.
And the very first track they released with this new lineup was Killed by Death, which is got to be one of the greatest titles of a rock track ever. And it's Motorhead, and we are not only back, but we are badder than ever.
Killed by Death, that's the one. Because Killed by Death is one of the best songs that Motorhead ever did.
It's a great Motorhead song. And it sounds brilliant. It's very heavy, you know, and musically it's great.
It's funny, had a hilarious video to go along with it, and it was a marvellous record. It's a great song. It still stands up today. And whenever now people say great Motorhead songs, that's going to be in the top 5 or 6.
Taylor, he's a pain in the arse that never stops moving around. Lemmy is Lemmy. He is an intelligent, scruffy, scuzzbaggish, artistic genius. Woozle drinks a lot of beer and falls over a lot and likes four-legged animals. And I am not sure what I am. One day I hope to find out.
We have a couple of nutters back in the band who looked the part, and they were great. I mean, they were two eager young kids who hadn't experienced the rock star lifestyle, so they had no. Obviously, they loved it when it came, but they didn't have any sort of pretensions or aspirations like that. They just loved being in Motorhead, and that shows.
Well, I don't take downers, but we do uppers quite often. Uppers and downers. What do you mean, in the career? Well, it's like with any band, I think. It's bound to be up and down, isn't it? Especially at night in a hotel room. It's up and down a lot of the time.
I don't think in terms of music it really made a lot of difference to Motorhead. I think they are and always will be really a three-piece band, but at the time Lemmy felt that, you know, there was strength in numbers.
Two guitarists, each playing exactly the same notes all the way from top to bottom. And I used to say, well, why have two people playing the same note? There was no attempt to expand any sort of talent, and what they played wasn't all that great. You know, you had one guy, Eddie, who played fantastic licks, and they tried to replace him with two guys who could play guitar. And in fact, it's a tour de force, because to be able to play exactly the same thing as somebody else non-stop is very difficult to do. Well, they managed to do that. It was very unimpressive.
I think personally Orgasmatron, which was the first proper album made with the four-piece lineup, is one of the best albums Motorhead ever did.
Orgasmatron was Motorhead making a very, very serious attempt at making a pretty serious album. Lots of fun on the album, particularly in the title track, which is amazing. But it was their first album after the Robbo era, and while Another Perfect Day had gone down like a cup of cold sick with traditional Motorhead fans, even though people like me thought it was pretty good, this was very much a return to their roots.
Orgasmatron is typical, I think, of almost every Motorhead album that's followed Ace of Spades. They've all been good records, and they all have moments of brilliance. And, you know, for Orgasmatron, it's the title track. It just blows you away. That's a great song.
It was brought to life on stage with a green light on him, and he was doing all this twitching and all this. It's really sort of got into character, and it was an absolute showstopper.
It's an exciting album, it's a different record, and all you have to do is listen to the title track, which is a slightly more experimental song. And you know that Motorhead were trying different things here. It was as if having the extra guitarist in the band, in fact, having a new lineup, Lemmy being the only one who remained from the previous incarnation, the classic incarnation, had given him a severe kick up the arse.
But they were pretty disappointed with it because they were happy with it as it was. And Bill Laswell, the producer, took it to the power station in America to remix it. And when it came back, apparently the band were sitting down thinking, is this the same album? You know, they were writing down all these things that were wrong with it, saying, you know, this isn't the album that it started out being. And they didn't have the budget left to sort of give it back to Bill Laswell and say, well, can you put everything back to how it was before? Because we liked it as it was before you took it to America and mixed it, you know. So
this was at a time when speed metal was coming in from America, and Motorhead were the granddaddies, so I guess they had to show how it was done, which they did on Orgasmatron. I thought that was, you know, the Hellbound Train on the cover says it all, really.
With Orgasmatron, it's a good record. But so is We Are Motorhead, so was 1916, you know, albums that followed sort of down the line, and all suffered the sort of similar fate. Yeah, well, it's not Ace of Spades, is it? I mean, and Orgasmatron is a perfect example of that. I mean, it was certainly better than Another Perfect Day and Iron Fist. A lot better. But people, by that point, were viewing Motorhead as in a different way. And in a way which they've continued to ever since. And it's just an awful situation that the Motorhead have never managed to extricate themselves from.
Whatever you call Motorhead, whether it's rock and roll, heavy metal, punk metal, grindcore, you know, whatever weird name you come up for it, essentially it's Motorhead. There really isn't any other band in the world that is remotely like them.
Well, I'm just really glad they're still going, because Lemmy has now become a national treasure, part of the furniture, part of the, you know, he's always been there. He's playing. Lemmy doesn't have to change. He can always be the same, because there'll be new generations coming up. He'll still be doing it when he's 80, so there'll be another generation for him to be Lemmy.
I think people have always considered Lemmy to be ageless. He's almost an elder brother or an uncle to people. I don't think that the passage of time has had any effect, certainly any audible effect, on how he plays or sings. So I think the aspect of age for Motorhead is really irrelevant. I think people will come and watch them no matter what their age, because Lars Ulrich of Metallica has said they're cool because some current band has name-checked them. I think they will always be around, and they'll always be as hip as they ever were, probably because they've never been hip.
Why is there so much violence on the road? Why do you break things in auto roads? I mean, the violence. I mean, when you start doing things.
Fucking violence!
I don't know what you mean about violence, huh? You want to see some violence, baby? Come and see me.
They've had their ups and downs, they've gone through troughs, they've gone through real problems financially, business-wise, musically, but they've always come out on top because Lemmy has refused to let it die. And Lemmy, as long as Lemmy keeps fighting the good fight, as it were, Motorhead will carry on fighting.
Look what they're doing! It's animals! Why are you doing this? Why are you doing this, Lemmy?
Why not?
I mean, you shouldn't be doing this.
Oh, sorry, we shouldn't be doing this. Oh, well, it's all part of the...
Don't break it on me, don't break it on me.
How's that? What do? Is that enough?
What's the title of the next record? What's the...
We Are Not Violent.
You know, for me, they simply sit in that classic, all-time great, totally unique spot that only and only they occupy.
No! Not me!
How old are you, Kelly?
What record?
What record?
Your next record!
What are you talking about?
Your next record!
You want to do an interview?
Yeah,
do it.
What's it like being killed by Motorhead?
When did you first pick up a guitar?
When I was 24. Pretty old, but I worked hard at it. But yeah, 24 years old, I learned to play rhythm. Someone taught me to play rhythm, and then after, I think you have to do that anyway, and then after a few years I taught myself just to copy people, you know.
Who did you like? What were your influences?
Rory Gallagher, mostly. I love Rory, so he played fantastically. So yeah, a lot of influence from him.
And when did you first start thinking about, you know, becoming a musician and being in a rock and roll band?
When I learned to play properly, was one thing. I'm not sure. When I was about 30, I tried really hard before that, but when I was about 30, I thought, right, either you're going to have a really good go this time. I did try before, or knock it on the head. And so I tried really hard, and I was lucky. I landed this gig with Motorhead.
How did you land that then? How did you get involved with Motorhead?
I auditioned. Actually, I read an interview in the Melody Maker with Lemmy, and right at the end of the interview, it said, oh, we're looking for another guitar player. It's after Robbo. God bless him, God bless him. It was after Robbo, you know. And Lem said, I think we'll probably end up with a completely unknown player. I don't know if he's joking or what, anyway. I went to Woolworths, to the photo booth, and I pulled 4 stupid faces, sent a demo tape off, and let I'm the most unknown guitarist there is. And sent that in, and then I got a phone call. He said, okay, come up for an audition. So I did that. And there were about 54 of us, I think.
Really?
And it dwindled it down to 7. And then I came back up, phoned me up, and said, do you want to come back for another audition? I said, yes, okay, I'll do that. So back I came for that one, and there were 2 of us left. He phoned me up, and he said, there's just you and the Welshman. That's Phil Campbell. He said, do you want to play off? I said, yeah, all right. But we didn't actually have a playoff, and he had both of us. And Phil was great. You know. We came from similar backgrounds, you know, semi-pro bands, trying hard. And that's how I got it.
Can you remember what it was like when you and Phil first joined? Can you remember the feeling?
Oh, yeah. Euphoric. Well, we tried really hard, both of us are separate. I didn't know him before that. But yeah, we tried very, very hard. Yeah, of course, it was fantastic. Yeah, I loved it. I have a great rapport with Phil Campbell, just because we came from similar backgrounds, you know, semi-pro bands. We tried very hard with. And it just dropped on with that one. Well, I thought it was well suited to Motorhead, personally. I don't know, I might be wrong, I was once.
The first sessions, were they recording or rehearsing? What did you do first?
No, the first thing was the young ones. Excuse me, yeah, the young ones, that was the very first thing. And Lem phoned me up and said, come up on Friday. Saturday we're re-recording Ace of Spades. And on Sunday we're doing the young ones. And that's terrified me. All these big cameras all the way around. I thought, oh my God. And then when we did that, the young ones, Rick Males are fantastic, big fans as well. They wouldn't have asked us onto the show. And I looked around and I thought, anyway, we did a little bit of a play there. And I was like, oh, God, that's over. That's finished. And Lem said, okay, we're back on about 7 when the audience comes in. I said, audience? I said, what audience? And of course it was a BBC place, and they all came anyway. It worked very, very well. I had my head down most of the time, so I was a little shy in those days. I don't give too much these days. Can you do this? Would you want to? No.
Was Pete Gill drumming at that point then? He was a drummer?
No, Filthy. Filthy did it, actually. Filthy played on the audition I did, well, the 2 auditions. And then he left, and we were just going to film Eat the Rich, and the comic strip with Peter Richardson. That was good fun, but Peter said, oh, I've had enough, and he went. So we phoned Phil up, and he came back. It was Pete Gill, wasn't it?
Yeah, well...
Fantastic. Great drummer. And Campbell got him involved, Phil Campbell. And so, sorry, there's smoke. I said, we need a drummer. And Phil said, well, Pete Gill from Saxon would be good, and he was superb. And we had 4 great years with Peter. Really enjoyed it. We'd come off the stage jubilant every single night and dance around the dressing room, you know, shaking hands and all that. Every single gig. And Pete said, I've never played in a band like this before, where we all come off and, you know, are so jubilant. But we really, really enjoyed it. We played well. I thought we did, anyway.
What was the touring schedule like?
Oh, it was pretty tough. About 9 months of the year, probably, we were away. And it's a long time. You don't see a dog growing up or whatever, you know. It's a long time. And you fly from LA, and we think, oh, we go back to England now and have a couple of weeks off, no, straight to Germany, and start another tour. And it's okay, it's good fun. People don't see the hard side of it, and there's a lot of work. It's enjoyable when you're up there, and you're kicking some, you know. That's great. I miss the audience, because they were superb. Everywhere we played, they were absolutely superb. I don't miss hotel rooms, and I don't miss airport lounges, but I miss the audiences. That was good. And the crack, we had so much fun. Every day there was something else.
It's a fun band, isn't it, Motorhead? I mean, whoever's in it, whenever, it's always been fun. Is that because of Lemmy, or is it just because of the lifestyle or the music, or what? What is the magic?
What, with Motorhead? Well, no, the chemistry of the band, well, it varies. You have to have the right people in it for, well, and the chemistry works. But we were just, it was a party band. But we did rehearse, eventually, we did rehearse. And we had it, because we wouldn't go on stage pissed. We wouldn't go on stage out of it, because, you know, all these kids may be saved up for, sorry, I don't know now, I must need another beer. These kids probably save up all month to come and see you, and so you can't go up there rolling around the stage and stuff. They want to see it right, and so we always made sure that that was there, but we always had a wonderful party time, and the band was about that. Good fun and partying and stuff.
You guys have never been shy of the whole backstage thing, have you? You always let the fans in and...
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. And we've never been scared of our fans. We'll meet them anywhere, wherever they are. If someone comes up the street, you haven't got to have a minder with you, clear them out. Just you talk. All they want to do is say hello, shake a hand, maybe you sign something, and that's it. Hey, we had a reputation. It used to terrify people. We have, when we first started, 84, 85, 86, we were on tour and all the support bands, they were frightened to go into the dressing room. And Lem said to me, he said, I haven't seen any of the guys from the other, you know, from the support bands. I said, they're frightened to come in here now. So eventually we dragged them in. I don't know what they thought. I don't think we were going to kill them or what. And we just drank some beers and everything was perfectly okay. We're a very amiable band.
Which support bands or bands have you played alongside that you like particularly?
Thunderhead. I liked Thunderhead. I thought they were really good. I liked Saxon, actually, because I thought that their live performance was magnificent. Sepultura. And they were very, very good. I used to go on the side of the stage and watch them. I'd always make a point of having a look and see, and I'd go back and report to their, I'd go back and say to them what they were like. He never went out very often. There was another one, Blue Oyster Cult, and they were great as well. A lot of good ones, you know.
Do you remember recording the 4 tracks for No Remorse?
Yeah.
Were you involved in the songwriting of those?
Oh yeah. The 4, well, we did 7, but we put 4 on there. I don't know whether the other 3 went, but we put 4 on that one. The management said, we want to put a compilation album out. And Lem said, oh no, not unless you put a double album, not unless you put 1 track of this new band on the end of each album. So we wrote that. I did Killed by Death,
Phil did Snaggletooth. I wrote Still Your Face, and Phil did Locomotive. And they all went on there. And then I said we had 3 more. Under the Knife. I don't know if you heard of that one. A good track. I don't know where they went. I never saw them released, but they probably were.
Killed by Death, is that something you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, very much. Yeah, very much so. Because the band still play it now. And I'm very proud of it, yeah. The solo was good as well. I used to write, me and Campbell used to write in my bedroom. We had a house together in Chamberlain Road, you know. Try that riff, and he'd had a little bit to it and so on. Then we'd record that in the studio, then Lemmy would come in and write the words. It worked like that. So, well, you do that solo, you do that solo. We tried to share them out. There was no ego thing with me and Phil. It was very good.
I wondered how it worked between you because...
Well, I worked with bands before. I had, 2 guitar players. So it was easy enough. Orgasmatron.
Yeah, Orgasmatron.
Great album. I loved it. Yeah, that was... Me and Phil wrote that in the bedroom, again in Chamberlain Road. Yeah, just wrote it very quickly as well. But we had Bill Laswell and Jason Casaro. Bill Laswell did something for Mick Jagger, I think he did one of his albums. A well-known jazz bass player. And Jason Casaro, I don't know what he worked with, but they were superb, the pair of them. And they made that album sound that way. But we wrote some really good songs, I thought, on that particular LP. And they're very difficult, if I could just digress for 2 seconds. To follow an album you've just done is a really difficult thing, because it's how we're going to follow that. So what should we write now? And you have to keep an eye on the, what's it called? The style that's happening at the time. And Metallica were coming up, and they're good friends of ours, who had a problem with that, but we didn't want to sound like them. But at the same time, we still had to keep abreast of the musical situation in rock and so on, and also retain the style and sound that Motorhead is renowned for. So that was quite difficult, but I thought we managed it very well with Orgasmatron. And Laswell was superb. He taught me so much about the execution of guitar solos. Sorry about this. Execution of guitar solos, how to play and what to put in, not what notes to play, but the way to execute the thing. And I learned a great deal from Laswell. He bought me a rat pedal. I know you don't know what a rat pedal is, but I didn't know. He said, you need a rat. I said, a rat? So yeah, it's a pedal anyway. Next day, in he came with this rat. It was superb. Just stamp on that. And all hell breaks loose. And, I loved it. I still got it. But he was very, very helpful. As for tracks on that one, Riding with the Driver, was that on there? I can't remember. There were so many of them. And yeah, I reached the mosquito frequency, apparently. I was trying so hard to get the solo down, I couldn't play. So I said, oh, sorry, Bill, I'll slow it down. Well, off it went again. I said, if you can cut this out, let me give me a black bomb. Black bomber. And I'd forgotten. And that's why I couldn't slow it down. But he went out and he said, oh, he's on the mosquito frequency right now. I said, and so Casaro said, just keep making that noise. He said, and I'll click you in and out, which he did. And that's why. It's a strange solo, Riding with the Driver. I couldn't repeat it, obviously. I couldn't do it again, reiterate that thing. But yeah, nice.
Did you do that track live, Match?
Pardon?
Did you do that track live?
No bombers.
The title track was always a favourite, wasn't it?
Yeah, went down very well, yeah. Easy song to play. Them just wanted a few, just one chord will do fine, he said. So Phil said, okay, we'll do it in E, and it really worked. It was about the words, about what he'd written. Very good.
Phil Taylor came back in at this point, didn't he? I think.
After that.
After that, for rock and roll.
Was he on rock? Yes, he was, yeah. Because he did the wolf. Oh, ooh, he went in and did that noise as well. Straight face, no blushing, nothing. But he was a good wolf.
What?
Yeah, he did come back for that one. I think that was pretty cheaply done. We were told to produce it, and it's very difficult to produce your own work. What did we record? That Britannia Row, I think it was. You know, Pink Floyd's studio. Nice studio. I don't know, it was rushed. We always wrote in about, say, 4 weeks to write an album, and no more than 2 to record it. We really did crack it down. Yeah. I thought it was good. A lot of people really liked the LP. I wasn't sure about it. Anyway, I think it was okay.
Michael Palin's on the record, isn't
Well,
he?
yes, right. And we did all the guitar solos in Michael's studio. Excuse me, in Camden. I can't remember what it's called now. Redwood Studios in Camden. And Andre Jacquemin was engineering it, and Andre did all the Monty Python stuff. And in Michael's studio was all the Monty Python costumes. So Filthy and Lemmy disappeared, and all came out dressed as all these characters in Python, but they were so, really, they knew Python so well, they would have it all lined perfect. Anyway, he said to Andre, "Is Michael coming in?" He said, "Oh, he's playing cricket." Sunday, this was. Playing cricket at the green. He said, "Oh, phone him up. Love him to come in." So he did. Andre phoned him up, and Michael came in, and then we said, "Oh, get in there, you know, to record some stuff, Michael, anything, the Vicar sketch or whatever it was. I think it was the Vicar sketch we used, and he did about 12 for us. Superb. What a lovely man. Really lovely bloke. Very, very intelligent chap as well. Had a good time there. It was nice of him to do that. It's like, I've got to get back to the cricket. So if he went, well, we kept him for about 40 minutes, I think he was there for. Yeah, beautiful chap.
What is the difference between recording and touring? I mean, are they two very different lifestyles?
Yeah,
different
completely.
frames of mind?
Yeah, completely, yeah. You've got to be right on it when you record, obviously. Because it's so hearable. That's not the right word, but and on stage it's not so bad. When you play live, it's 50% listening to it and 50% show. When you're listening to an LP, it's 100% listening because I haven't got a band there. It's good fun doing both, but it's better fun touring because you don't give a shit when you tour.
Did you write on the road much ever?
No, not very often.
Too much hard work.
Some bands do. We spent most of the time in the bar. No, I don't know if that's true, but no, we didn't write. You don't feel like it, you know. You come off stage and you're really buzzed up. The last thing you want to do now is sit down and write another track for the next album. We'll do it when it's time for the album. Then we'll go and we'll write it then and rehearse then. On tour now, it's just party time, isn't it?
Do you miss the lifestyle, by the way?
Yeah, I miss the audiences. Doesn't matter where we played in the world, they were absolutely superb. So I miss that. I miss the fun we had on tour, because that was something else. You know, every day something would go off. I don't miss, as I said before, airport lounges or hotel rooms and living out of a suitcase. Everything else is pretty good. But it's hard work. It's tiring.
What about doing all the publicity? Was that always quite good fun in Motorhead? I mean, it's hard work for some bands, but some bands enjoy it. What about
we loved it. Yeah. Well, me and Lem used to do most of it. And that was so much fun. You just bounce off each other. So many stories. I won't go into detail now, but there's so many stories about, the interviews with him. And he taught me a lot about that. He said, don't worry about these guys. He said, just insult them. Because I said, you were really insulting. And he said, oh, don't worry about that. They love it. They love to be insulted. He said, Lemmy insulted me. Oh, did you do? Oh, great. But it wasn't about insulting people, but he just taught me how to behave, if you like.
He was saying that you got to keep control of yourself and be yourself, I suppose, isn't he? Like...
Yeah, absolutely, yeah. You have to be discerning in how you answer questions, but you can always throw in jibes and jokes. I mean, we did interviews. We used to do radio tours together, me and Lem, all up around the country and in Europe to promote an LP. And sometimes the guy would ask questions and he'd just get nonsense answers completely. Absolute rubbish. But depended on the movie, what movie we were in. Didn't affect the album sales, people still bought them anyway.
No Sleep at All, the live album.
No Sleep at All.
One of a few. What do you think about this recording? Have you heard it? Do you think it captured the band's sound quite well? Or... I just wonder how easy it is to capture Motorhead live on a record, because it's... You kind of got to be there, haven't you? I don't know, what do you think?
I'm not sure. Well, there were better venues we could have had. Hammersmith Odeon would have been good, but we did one there. No Sleep till Hammersmith. This one, well, we didn't choose Finland. Well, some was probably cheap. PA was cheap. Blew half the speakers out of the damn thing. But you're mic'd up, you know, so the sound comes through okay. We played all right. I don't think we were really into doing another live one. But we did it now.
The 1916 album. I mean, obviously, I realise a lot of the war stuff comes from Lemmy. He's really just crazy on that, isn't he?
Oh, sure.
What was your input to that album? Did you enjoy working on that?
It was okay. It was okay. I remember on that 1916 track. Sorry about this. We had a tread thing. I don't know what they call it. As grit. We had to walk in it. You know, walk like marching time. So we had the sound of boots marching. That was the idea of it. It made me laugh. I think it's on that. I think it's on the track actually. Well, that's me and Lemmy walking. Didn't have much input with 1916. Very, very good words. I remember he phoned me up. We watched the same programme actually. I was at home in Islington. He was living in Chelsea, I think it was. And phone rang. It was Lemmy. He said, "Did you just watch that documentary on the First World War? The Accrington Pals. So First World War thing. Quite sad." And then he wrote the words for it there and then. And he showed them to me next day, and then we did that track.
He loves that war stuff, doesn't he?
He loves it, yeah, he does.
What does he love about it? Is it the sentiment or the art? Because it's quite... I don't know, like... What's the word?
What does Lemmy love about it? Well,
yeah,
he doesn't like war.
No, but... Is he a historian? Does he like the history and...
Well,
yeah.
He does, yeah. Especially the German history, and he's well read on that, you know. He knows what he's talking about. I mean, it's not everyone's subject, but he's quite an authority on that.
What did you write from the album? Ramones, you're going to tell me?
That was one of them, yeah. Well, quite a few, but Ramones, yeah. And we had a riff, and we played it really slowly. And then Phil Campbell sat down, and had enough of that. And so me and Lem stood there, and he said, "Let's speed it right up." I said, "OK," so we put it really, really fast. And I said, "God, it sounds like the Ramones," because they were friends of ours, you know, big fans of theirs. And then he wrote that. He just has one idea for the lyrics, and he's got them straight away. He has them down. Very good. And you can write them in one, you know, we've got no words. We've got an LP written. We've got all the backing tracks down, all the solos on there, but there's no lyrics. Half an hour. Another room, back it comes. So I ain't got half an idea anyway. But yeah, it's very good. And that suggestion was enough for that. I like the track. And the Ramones are very pleased with it as well.
March or Die. Was there any pressure here to sort of go a bit commercial? Not commercial, but what's the word?
No, we wrote it here. Well, not in the studio, but in this vicinity, a place up the road there anyway. Me and Phil was very difficult because you're not always in the mood to write. You can't. Well, they say, "Oh, you've got to write an album." Oh, really? Well, I'm not inspired. You know, we sat there for ages. Went to the pub. We get some inspiration there, and we wrote most of the tracks up the road. But we weren't particularly pleased with it, although it seemed to do okay.
Slash is on that record.
Yeah.
What was Slash like to work with? Was he's a nice chap?
He was okay, yeah. He phoned me up in LA. I was over there phoning the apartment. He said, "I hear you're doing an album." I said, "Yeah, we are." I said, "We almost finished it." And he said, "Oh, I'd love to play on it." I said, "Well, there's only one track left," and that was "I Ain't No Nice Guy." And I said, "That's the only one left, and I've got the solo for that. It's in F sharp. I hope I got this right." And that's in F sharp. I said, "Can I have that if you want?" He said, "Okay," and he came down and played it. Very good. He was great. And he came on, we went on tour with, it was Guns N' Roses, Metallica, Motorhead, with the stadium tour. We opened it up. It was good, such good fun. In the States, there were about 6 or 7 stadiums, I think. And Slash got up every time he played and did this. He did do "No, You Better Run," but that wasn't the song he recorded, but that's the one he got up and played with us. But he did a good job with that. Ain't No Nice Guy. I didn't want to, but I hate it. I'm Motorhead England, and when I joined the band, it wasn't the band I left, but the band I joined was, you know, it had an attitude and almost a way of life, if you like, and I really loved that. And this acoustic stuff I didn't like, and so I said, I'll play it on that. And Lem said, "Well, it's a heavy bit here." So I played the heavy bit, and then Slash did the solo for it. But we did, we were always asked, 84, 85, we were always asked, "Why don't you do a ballad?" Because Motorhead is not known for ballad, never done a ballad. I think they did one actually, but not known for it. So we wrote "Love Me Forever," and that was our ballad, and that was really good. And we used to play that, make all the lighters to go on and all that stuff, you know, which we didn't see very often. We used to, cans of beer used to come flying up, but all the lighters would go on. It was excellent. And so we did it, but it kept going. Every other album, there would be another ballad on it. And that used to piss me off. I really didn't sorry about the language, but I really wasn't, I wasn't up for that. I just wanted it to kick ass. That's what we were, you know.
How would you categorise Motorhead? Rock and roll? Speed metal?
Rock and roll. I think rock and roll. And that's what, I think the band was going before the term heavy metal was formed. And no, I just thought, just turned it up. And whatever we played with that volume. Lemmy bought me a toggle switch for my guitar, volume switch, went to number 11. I've never put it on. They said, "Yeah, worse. That goes to 11. Brilliant. Thank you. I'll put it on. I've still got my guitar at home. So I'll put this number 11 on, maybe it'll go a little bit louder.
What about Ozzy? Did you,
Yeah, we toured with him. Yeah, we toured with Ozzy a couple of times. Good bloke. Good chap. I liked him. Down to earth, you know. Some great stories. Really, really good stories he comes out with. Well, he's a nice fellow.
What kind of a drummer is he? What's Phil's style?
Oh, who knows? How can you define Taylor? I think he was a muppet. He was everywhere. No, he's great. He had a great feel, wonderful sense of humour, a unique man, and a very, very honest, down-to-earth, beautiful chap. Great bloke. Really, I really liked him. He had a unique sense of humour, though. He made things up. He didn't copy from anybody. He just made them up. He was marvellous to be on tour with. He's a great guy to be with. And he had a good heart. And good man, Taylor.
What about Mikkey D? What's his style? Because he came in, didn't he? I mean...
Yeah. He's a very technical player. Are you going to ask me, does it change the music? Well, every new member of any band will change it a little bit, for obvious reasons. He's very technical, very good at that. So if you want any fancy stuff, Mickey's a boy. But then so was Pete Gill. He was a very technical player as well.
What was the approach with that album?
The approach? I wanted to, after March or Die, that one was, we wanted to kick a bit more arse. So I thought, me and Phil were saying, well, we're going to write something that's, really, really going for it again. I liked it. I liked the album, actually. And the reason for the title was we couldn't decide on one. Because false teeth almost came out. What we used to do always, we'd take a track, whichever the strongest title, on which we played well, that would be the title of the album. And we didn't have one. We had a lot of strong songs on there, but they weren't good enough titles. I mean, weeks doing this, and in the end, Phil Campbell said, just call it Bastards. So I said, oh, okay, then we'll call it that. So that's how that happened. But the press loved it, and the radio stations, because they can't say that word, but they can when they're talking about an LP. So, because our manager said, oh, you never get any press, you never get any, but we got plenty. I thought it was a good LP. There's some great tracks on there.
You wrote a couple of tracks on that album?
I hope so. Yeah. Quite a few, actually. There's one in particular was I Am the Sword. And we had one track short. We timed them all when we finished the album. Producer said, shit, we got one, you need another track. He said, go back to your apartment, rehearsal and write one. So I did. And I just sat there for a couple of hours with a few beers, etc. And got this riff down, and I Am the Sword. I took it in the next day. I taped it in a little tiny machine on the floor, and I took the cassette in and said, have a listen to that. I got a bit embarrassed, so I went out of the room, but they all came filing out, and I said, what do you think? The producer said, get in there and record that, so that's how that came about. But, it was, I loved the song. I thought it was very good, and Devil's another really good song. We had Big Hand in that. I had Big Hand in most of those. We were very enthusiastic for that LP. Myself and Phil in particular, and Lemmy, of course, did his usual stuff. Hellraiser 3, well, then I got a call from a manager that we had at the time. And he said, do you want to work with... my memory. Would you like to do the title track for the new Hellraiser movie, Hellraiser 3? I said, yeah. I said, well, don't you ask me. You probably couldn't get Lemmy. He's probably the Rainbow Club or something. And he said, 2 tracks. So we did 2 tracks for that film. Yeah, and we did it with Clive Barker for the Hellraiser thing, did the video, and that went on this album. It was great to work with him. And Pinhead was there, and all these pins sticking out, fantastic. It took about 7 hours, and we put that makeup on him, Good fun, I really enjoyed that. Very, very professional outfit. Clive Barker's great. Anyway, I digress. As usual.
What do you think of the Sacrifice album?
It wasn't bad. Not a bad LP. I loved Dogface Boy. That was very, very good. It was one of my favourites. I liked that one a lot. And the last one, but I can't remember what it was called. Phil was doing a lot of different tunings on the guitar. The Tennessee tuning and the Wichita tuning, I don't know what they were. I thought, I'm not detuning to this key and that key. I picked this up from these American producers and stuff. It was okay, but I stayed in the same tuning. So that was a little odd. We played together fine, but I don't know, the music was a tiny bit different because of that. Yet the feel of it was still there. Well, I was coming towards the end of it by then, so I didn't really get too involved in it. I did to the extent that you have to play, you play, and then do your very best. But, how can I say this? Like, the feel of the band wasn't the same, and I'm not like that. I'm very, I'm very straight on the line, and I really didn't enjoy seeing it change a little bit. I think it's probably back okay now, but it was different. And
which songs spring to mind that you're proud of? When someone says, well, when you think, right, Motorhead, all those years, what do you like in your head? In your mind, what do you hear? What do you hear? What comes into your mind?
Well, I love Kill by Death. I really like that song. Steal Your Face, I like that one. Snaggletooth, Locomotive, all the first ones, because there was all that energy and feel, and it was fresh and young, hungry. So a lot of that early stuff I liked. Under the Knife, which you don't know much about, there were quite a few of them. Riding with the Driver, Ain't My Crime, Ain't My Crime, that was a nice song. Voices in the Sky, because we were branching out and doing little bits and pieces, still trying to retain their usual sound,
And,
it's a very difficult question to answer.
I understand.
So many songs.
Fast Eddie Clarke lineup. What songs did you like from?
Oh, I loved that. I really loved the Eddie Filthy and Lemmy lineup. I thought that was superb. Excuse me. When I joined, I thought, how do I keep that style? How do I retain that sound? So I didn't want to change it. But obviously, as I said before, inevitably it does change. Because especially if you're writing, you'll write it a different way. But I always tried to keep it. I really loved it. I always tried to keep that image and as much of that sound as you could. But you had to move ahead. And, terrific. I thought they were superb. They were unique. Very difficult, actually, to try and retain that. To try and emulate it, if you like, without copying it and also making it a touch more modern.
Didn't you all play together at was it the birthday party?
Oh yeah. We gave Robbo a really short lead, so we all walked to the front. Hammersmith that was. Robbo tried and out came his lead, and he's standing there like that, playing away. Not a single sound coming out of his mouth. I don't know what we do with a vicious sense of humour. Well, yeah, we did all play there. Filthy as well, everybody. Yeah, it was good laugh.
Did you know Fast Eddie before then?
No. Well, I knew him, but not before I joined the band. I didn't know him. No.
What did you think of the album that Robbo did?
I thought it was very good. It did well in America. It was great, and you could hear the Lizzie bit, and you could hear the Robbo influence in it. But no, I thought it was a really good LP.
He's a fantastic guitarist, isn't he?
Yeah, superb. I see him quite a bit and know him very well.
Are there any gigs that stand out in your mind, particularly? Maybe festivals, or is there anything that?
There was one Barcelona. They were all so good. Like I say, we should jump about jubilantly afterwards. But there was one in Barcelona, in Spain, and the audience, the place was absolutely packed solid. And it was a pretty big venue. And when the lights went out and we walked on, it erupted. The noise was incredible. I was walking on with Lemmy, and went, listen to this. They're up for it, aren't they? And it was deafening. We had a fantastic gig. But we have lots of great shows all over the place. Japan, Brazil, Argentina, Australia. Ever we played, really. We had Germany, Hammersmith, of course. Terrific.
All right, what about Lemmy? What kind of a front man is he?
Oh, superb. He's got such control over the audience. He really is. He's fantastic to be on stage with. You don't have to worry about anything. It's like he's solid there all the time. Excellent. He knows exactly what he's doing, what he should do after all this time. Well, he knows exactly what he's up to. He knows how to speak to the audience, even if he's slagging them off, which he quite often does. But he gets away with it. He has a really good manner. He's got a very powerful countenance. But on stage, he's the business up there. He works really, really well with you. You know, it's not just trying upstage or anything. He's a team, and he's really good at that.
Would you recommend being in Motorhead if you didn't want to lose your hearing?
Oh yeah. Well, you can get a hearing aid. Yeah, it's a superb band to play for. Absolutely superb. And it had a different way about it. It wasn't with every other, like all these other bands. Well, not all these other bands, but an awful lot of bands and ones I played with and stuff didn't have the same feel as this band. Didn't give a flying, but they were on the ball all the time. Yeah, it was great. It was a great band to play for, and I'm very proud of that.
How did Chill Out or Die come about?
Well, I was out of my head, off my rocker, in fact, and I've always loved tracks, especially like Pink Floyd. Excuse me, where you just have a certain sound or something that only comes once through the whole song. Put that back on. I'll have a listen to that again. Oh, there it is, there it is. And, well, some smoky dope and all that nonsense. And I thought, well, I'll do one. So I've always liked sort of ambient music, and not massively like rock, but I've always really loved it because of the chill-out aspect of it. So it took me about 4 months, I think. I did 4 hours worth. And I took this tape, or these tapes, up to a friend of mine at the studio, and I said, can you put this onto DAT for me, on the little format thing? So he did. And while I was in his kitchen, there was a head of a small record, Cherry Red, I think, record company, in the kitchen as well. And he said, oh, I like that music, what's that? I thought, oh, it's just some nonsense I did, just so that when I chill out, I can hear these things just coming once, because I made every single sound on that. Chimes and all sorts, slowed them down, speeded them up, all sorts of stuff, you know. And Joe Wiley also loved it, by the way. And he said, I'd like to put that out. I said, oh, if it's just, you know, it's just a crack, just for me to listen to in the evening. And he said, well, you choose 1 hour out of those 4, anything you want, you have total control of it, and I'll put it out. So that's how it came to be, into being. And Joe Patagno, who's a good friend of mine, did all the Motorhead logo and the album sleeves. And I spoke to him about it. He sent me 4 pictures, and he said, you just have to have $5,000 each usually. He said, use them as you wish. So there was this one which I chose for that Chill Out or Die sleeve. I don't know if it sold many copies or what. I find them in second-hand shops. I go, we didn't think it would be like that or whatever. I like it. And I got into ambient film music, really, through Peter Richardson. Because in Eat the Rich, he's the producer for the comic strip, and during the film Eat the Rich, he wanted a piece of, because we did the soundtrack for that, and he wanted a piece of music that was like laid back and stuff. And I got the guitar solo instrumental called Bess, B-E-S-S. And he said, oh, send me a tape. So I sent it to him, and he put it in the movie. He said, oh, that's just what I wanted. So I kept in touch with him about all this film music, because I'm very interested in doing it. It's on the net someplace, but it's not been used yet, as far as I know, anyway. Well, fingers crossed.
Have you always played the same kind of guitar? What do you prefer?
No, I started off with a Fender Stratocaster, which I've got it's an airbrush painting on the scratch plate, which I used for the young ones. And because I thought I was Rory Gallagher, because I love Rory Gallagher, so I bought a Strat. And I played that all the time. In Motorhead, I couldn't really hear when I was playing, powerful enough. Changed all the pickups, changed all sorts of stuff. In the end, I bought the Les Paul. I've still got the Stratocaster. Bought the Les Paul, I could do everything. Plain as day, so I had that all customised. It's beautiful. I still got that.
And what about the amp, you know, what kind of...
The Marshalls?
Yeah, what kind of rig did you guys use? How do you get that such a loud Motorhead sound?
Well, 6 of them turned up a long way. That's how we used to do that. It's just took volume. It's hard to control that amount of volume. And you've got 4, I used 4, so we had 6, but I used to use 4 Marshall stacks behind. And that's very loud. I remember a few gigs I walked past my stacks, I thought I could only hear them. I got to Lemmy and I could only hear him. And I walked across the other side of the stage and all I could hear was Phil. I thought, good God, no wonder our hearing's gone, you know, but we got it sorted out eventually so we could all hear each other. But that's why I chose the Les Paul, so I could actually hear what I was playing, because it's very difficult to do, especially a solo. How do you play a solo when you can't actually hear? It's okay looking and see where your finger goes, but I don't play that way. I play by feel, and whatever I hear, whatever sound I make, the next one, I've already formulated it in my mind. I know it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's how I've always played. But why I have a problem with, especially the left ear, is because all the side fills there, Lemmy's in the middle of the stage, and all the side fills are so loud. And Phil got it in that ear, because he was on that side of the stage, the side fills there. And they're there, so Lemmy can hear everything in the middle. And I couldn't stand by them in the end. It was too much. I wasn't getting old, but I thought, well, this is messing my hearing up. And still whistles a bit.
What's next for Wurzel?
Who knows? Well, that's Pete Townsend, isn't it? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know, Rachel. I would like to play again. It's just that it has to be the right thing. I don't want to do another ambient album, particularly. I did that one, but I'd like to play some more rock. It's difficult to get started. It's very difficult to form a band that's going to equal the one that you've left, especially if that was a successful one. Very difficult. So it's hard to, not to get inspired, but it's hard to have, what's the word for it? God. Shit, I'm always doing this.
Enthusiasm? No.
Confidence in. That's not the right word either, but...
Belief, maybe?
Hmm?
You want to believe in it, or...?
Yeah, you got to be hungry. Sure of that. Yeah, I'm pretty hungry. It's, you have to... I go to McDonald's when we leave. I don't know what's next. We'll just take it as it comes. I get asked to do guest appearances and stuff like that. That's okay, but it's not like working with your own outfit. But I don't know. I'm not answering this very well.
Do you still like playing? You still like playing?
Oh, I love it. Love it. I did the Onion Fair in Newent in Gloucestershire. I had to open it through the town with the town mayor and the crier in front ringing a bell. Oh, I thought I was going to the gallows. That's what it felt like. I kept everybody looking out the windows and going, oh my God, I'll let myself on for you. And took up to the stage, town crier in front. And I had 2 guys that I used to play with in Cheltenham 20 years ago. And I said, phoned one up, I said, do you want to come have a blast to help me out with this Onion Fair, opening the Onion Fair? And he said, yeah, OK, what should we do? I said, I don't know, we'll do some 12 bar or something. He said, oh, well, we'll just wing it then. I said, OK, we'll wing it. And I hadn't played together for such a long time with him. I got there, up on the stage, and the town crier was already up there. And the drummer, Andre, he said, is it OK, we start now? And he said, no, we're just waiting for the Wurzel man. So then I came up, but it was absolutely fantastic. It was a totally traditional English place. The whole town is sealed off. It's only a small town, it's all sealed off. It's really, really brilliant. And I got up there and I did this, I showed them quickly. And work, go like that, and it's all right. And I took it up and I said, look, we haven't played together for 23 years. I said, so we're going to be winging it today. And I said, if you don't know what winging it is, this is winging it. And then we played, and it went down so well. Superb. And yeah, I still love to play. I went down well with those people anyway. A lot of Motorhead t-shirts out there. Bless them.
Have you seen the band as it is now since you left?
Yeah, I have. I keep in touch text-wise with Phil Campbell, and Phil said, "Come to Hammersmith, we're playing there." You know, he said, "Come on down. I'll put you on the guest list, Will." So I said, "Okay." So I went down, and he met me at the door and brought me in and stuff, and I got into the dressing room and Lemmy threw everybody out. Everybody out, and they'd all gone. And there was just the four of us left. I thought, what's going on here? I thought it was a hit team. And they said, "Will you come up and play Overkill with us tonight?" And something else. Last November. So I said, "Yeah, sure." Well, it was great. So I did, waited, encore was Overkill. And I went up and did it, and I looked over, I'm looking around thinking, yes, I remember this now. Well, the audience were fantastic. They even chanted my name. No, sorry, that was good fun. I really did enjoy that. I went missing for 2 days after that. I was in big trouble for that, but never mind. Shit happens. But it was, yeah, it was a nice thing. I thought, do I want it again? I thought, I'm not sure. It was good to do it that one night, though.